Hi everybody, this is our daily agenda for March 8th. So for today we are starting a brand new unit. We are moving on from our Enneagram projects. A note on those Enneagram projects, ladies and gentlemen, only 4 of you have actually turned them in, so we expect a lot more of you to be turning it in within this week. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you had at least 2 weeks to work on them in class with me and Mrs. Arroyo, as well as several work days. So no excuses. Make sure you get those in. For today, for your do now, as always, you have your 30-day writing challenge. For day 21, what are your greatest strengths? Think about what you're good at. This can include your personal qualities, skills, etc. Complete the prompt in 5 to 6 sentences. This is, as always, in your 30-day writing challenge notebook. So just tell me, what are your greatest strengths? In class, some of you mentioned that your greatest strength are collecting Starbucks cups or collecting pops. What do you think is your greatest strength? As always, make sure to keep those cameras on during class. Our essential question for our new unit is, how can different modes of communication make me an effective researcher and or storyteller? You guys, we're starting our podcast. So today we're going to be talking about podcasting notes and structure, and you guys are going to, for homework, be talking about some podcasting ideas. All right. So we are starting with our new podcasting journals. So you guys are going to, let me pull those up for you guys so you guys can see what they look like. So these are our podcasting notebooks. You guys are going to have access to them in class, and I'm going to go over them before I go into what we're doing for today. So for our podcasting journal, this is what our table of contents looks like. You guys can actually click them, and it'll take you straight to that link. So our intro to podcasting, which is where we're going to start, leads us to this page. So the intro, what are podcasts? First, I want you guys to brainstorm. What are podcasts? What do you know about them? What's the difference between a podcast and a YouTube video? Some of you guys were able to answer this yesterday. And then making ketchup hurry up. So this is the first podcast you're going to listen to. All you have to do is click this, and it'll take you straight to the link. So just wanted to let you guys know. During and after listening to the podcast, I want you to reflect on some of the following questions. What stands out to you? What sounds did you hear? What was this podcast about? And why did the author start this podcast? Why do you think the author wrote this podcast? So there's a couple sentences right here for you guys. Afterwards, we are moving into our podcast structure notes. So we're going to be working on this a little bit on Thursday too, just because the Wi-Fi was a little bit glitchy. But you guys are actually going to learn about the structure of podcasts and drag each one of these topics into, whoops, you guys, sorry about that. And drag each one of these topics into the correct place. So you're just going to put it where it belongs, and then you guys are going to start off on your own podcasting adventure. So you guys are going to click these, the links will open up, and you guys can listen to your own podcast at your own space. And you guys are going to tell me, now that you know what the structure is, what stands out to you? We're also moving on to beginning to brainstorm our own podcast and getting into those topics. I'm going to be going through this journal as we are going through our podcasting unit, but for now, that's all the podcasting pages you guys need to know. So on to Monday. So you guys answer that question in your journals. We listened to this Making Ketchup Hurry Up podcast, and then you guys we will be moving into our podcast structure. So our podcast structure is broken up into those 3 main parts: the intro, the body, and the outro. And each one of them has specific pieces of information in a podcast, and I'm going to work with you guys to identify it. We're going to break down that ketchup podcast a little more. The podcast structure. Why do we podcast? Well, usually it's to inform, to entertain, or to enlighten others. And what do people usually podcast about? They'll podcast about anything. You guys are going to research what kind of podcast you want to actually create. So this is where you will be picking your own podcasting adventures. This is where you guys will let you know the structure and why people podcast. You're going to go ahead and listen to one of these podcasts and answer the following questions below in your notebooks. And then finally, our exit ticket for today. Why do people use podcasting? I really want to hear from you guys. Now that you've heard multiple podcasts, why do you think people use it? Why not just use a YouTube video? Why not just make a TikTok? Why specifically a podcast? All right, guys, as always, if you have any questions, you have either me or Mrs. Arroyo. You can message, you can send us an email, and we're here for you guys. Other than that, I'll see you guys in class.